After 3 months in the cold, Kenya is finally back to get to its preferential duty-free, quota-free access to the 500 million-strong European market. The EU has fast-tracked the application following the signing of the Economic Partnership Agreement on the 13th of October, allowing exporters to once again sell their produce to the EU duty-free. Here's Adelaide Changole with more on this story.
Tomorrow will be a very Merry Christmas for Kenyan exporters as the European Union restores duty-free access to Kenyan goods. In a statement to newsrooms, the European Union said it had heeded a request by the government and expedited Kenya's return to the quota-free duty-free export regime.
Because right now we're talking about 3 to 6 months. We want to see whether we can, try and reduce that. And if we can't, at least keep it to the minimum, which is 3 months.
The move brings to an end the nightmare that began on October 1st after Kenya lost preferential access to the 500 million-strong European Union owing to the country's failure to conclude talks on the Economic Partnership Agreement before the October 1st deadline.
I feel very sad that after 30 years of trading with Europe duty-free, now we're paying duties.
The journey on what would be a new Economic Partnership Agreement, or EPAs, began in 2002, but after 12 years and a series of misunderstanding and grandstanding, the talks had not been concluded. The issue was further compounded by the fact that Kenya was negotiating under the ambit of the East African Community, while the rest of the East African partner states are classified as least developed countries, meaning they get tax-free access to the EU with or without ratifying the EPAs. Kenya is not, and it was left holding the short end of the stick once the October 1st deadline for the conclusion of the talks lapsed.
Countries which were in the same situations as Kenya, like Ghana, Nigeria, Botswana, Namibia, they all signed up the EPA earlier this year, and so they continue to have this duty-free, quota-free access.
Our other brothers and sisters in the region are OLDCs. We are not. To them, it is not as urgent as it is to us.
As the only country in Africa and in the greater African, Caribbean and Pacific group of countries to have been subjected to EU's generalized system of preferences, Kenya had to pay taxes ranging from 0% to 30% on goods exported to the EU. And this has costed exporters an estimated 100 million shillings every week.
The real additional cost is 637 million. Assuming everything that is being sold is sold.
But there was more than that at stake. The EU accounts for 24% of the country's total export markets, taking up 95% of the country's horticultural produce, and the sector supports more than 2 million people directly and indirectly and contributes a significant chunk of taxes.
Out of every 100 shillings that you spend, 14 shillings of that is coming out of our exports.
The increase in taxes would therefore have a big impact and would diminish the country's ability to compete with other producers eyeing the same market. But the storm appears to be over now. According to EU Ambassador to Kenya, the resumption of Kenya on the list of market access will allow the 200 billion shillings worth of exports to remain competitive, which will be good for Kenyan businesses and jobs.
Talk about aid as much as we want. At the end of the day, the difference to a society is trade.
Kenya's horticultural industry generates about $1 billion every year and contributes about 1.6% of the country's gross domestic product. Adelaide Changole, KTN.